And they're not as quiet. I think they're more acceptable because it's more like a background
Air
noise.
conditioning, yeah.
It's kind of acceptable. Like there's plenty of noise pollution from building air conditioners and manufacturing plants and all that. And it's just kind of acceptable. And I think
Not the
I
high
think
pitched like minor noise.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, what is that? And so, yeah, I mean, I always think about like, you get all these charging stations for like Teslas. And for me, I'm like, well, why isn't there like a little mini box right next to every charging station that is mining Bitcoin? So when the cars are not charging, you're monetizing that power at that spot. And when then the cars need it to charge, you're turning off your mining equipment, and it's all like an integrated system.
So Foundry, we talked about everything you guys do, but do you make rack space? Do you have your own internal development of that? The small box idea, that could be Foundry's business.
Yeah. So last year, 2024, we spent a lot of time actually thinking about kind of how business was going to evolve. We had actually climbed to like 300 employees, and we were into a lot of stuff. We were supporting decentralized infrastructure, a lot of different protocols. So it wasn't just Bitcoin. And we went through a big phase where we kind of split out those teams. So we were doing a lot around decentralized AI tech. We spun that out into a company called Yuma, which is a DCG portfolio. We took our labs team that was working on a lot of different protocols, and we integrated that with the DCG team. Then we took our self-mining business and we spun that out into a company called Fortitude. And Andrea Childs is the CEO of Fortitude. She was number 2 employee, or I should say the second employee at Foundry. So she's worked with Foundry since the very beginning, been in the mining space for a long time, and she stepped over to be the CEO of that. And that self-mining business, Fortitude, is out there. They continue to buy machines. They're actually buying sites. They're like leaning into more that infrastructure side of the house. And then we provide services to them, right? So we try to make their life easier as a miner.
So Mike, I recently saw you spun off 2 mining subsidiaries or 2 subsidiaries from Foundry Digital. Can you talk more about the reasoning for that and the benefits that might come from those spinning out?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of aspects of that. One, from a Foundry perspective, it was getting rather difficult to explain everything we were doing anytime we were talking about Foundry, because we were doing so many different aspects. And I think part of the idea was we can get a lot more focus and attention by spinning out these companies and giving the teams a very focused mission. And then I also think it gives DCG lots of optionality in terms of what they want to do with the businesses over time. And then for us with Foundry and the team at Foundry becomes a very clear mission, very focused mission in terms of continuing to support the North American mining ecosystem and help miners be more successful.
So with Yuma and Fortitude, what's the difference between them and why those 2 companies versus other industries or other things that Foundry is doing?
So Fortitude was their self-mining business. So they're really focused on actually mining, right? So they got equipment, they got plugged in around the country, and they're leaning into buying facilities and that aspect of building out the mining infrastructure. The one interesting thing with Fortitude is they call it venture mining because it's not all Bitcoin mining. They also mine other proof of work tokens. So you kind of, as they're talking to investors and as they look at the ecosystem, that there may be a different token that's a better token to mine. So they'll buy those machines and help support those other networks. Yuma is really focused on decentralized AI. So it's a very different world where you kind of got all these big centralized AI players like the hyperscalers. And there's this idea and there's technology available that says, can we build AI in a decentralized way? So I don't have to live under Mark Zuckerberg's rules or under Elon Musk's rules. We can do this in a decentralized way, kind of like the way the internet was built. And Yuma's all about trying to figure out how to advance that mission in life. So very different. And then Foundry is focused on supporting the North American Bitcoin miners.
They're adjunct businesses, but not necessarily directly supporting the North American Bitcoin mining that Foundry is.
Exactly. It's kind of a different purpose.
What is your take on different mining of altcoins, knowing that so much capital has gone into the Bitcoin mining via pubcos, and maybe those companies aren't mining as profitable as a private miner who didn't have access to public markets, knowing that there could be saturated with the difficulty and actual profitability of Bitcoin mining? Do you see more people coming into prop mining or other types of altcoin mining to supplement, the returns that Bitcoin mining used to provide?
If you think about it just from a kind of a return perspective, there's absolutely opportunity in the altcoin space, right? So there are other networks where it may not be as competitive from a mining perspective like Bitcoin. And if you're paying attention and you're engaged in those markets and you understand how they work, there's opportunity there for sure. I mean, we've proved it over the last 5 years that, but they're smaller markets. You're not going to get the massive returns that you get if you can scale Bitcoin mining, but you can get better returns on invested capital and you can't deploy as much.
In those markets, I mean, when you're talking about foundries buying all these machines, working with all these manufacturers, what are some of the key learnings you have for other miners, private or public, when they're working with large manufacturers, knowing how important time to delivery and getting machines that don't have to be RMA'd immediately is to a miner?
I think it's one of the most challenging parts of our industry. And a lot of times you have to kind of bet against, we always talk about like zig when everyone else is zagging or zag when everyone else zigs. Because you almost have to bet against kind of what everyone's thinking that you should do, right? So there's definitely times when I kind of view it like when nobody wants to buy Bitcoin mining equipment, it's probably a good time to buy Bitcoin mining equipment. And when everybody wants to buy Bitcoin mining equipment, it's probably too late to buy Bitcoin mining equipment. And it's true with the altcoin world as well. So I think the most important thing is you need to partner with people that you trust, who've been there, who've lived through the cycles, that understand kind of how the industry works, right? Like, JP, you've been doing this a long time. Like, I would trust working with you to procure machines or to deploy machines because you've been there, you've done it, you've learned. Like, we all have made the mistakes, but man, when you first get into Bitcoin mining, you don't really understand what you're going to get yourself into. And
trusted, exactly.
Yeah, work with trusted partners, right? So we need more people like you in the industry. So we're getting them. It's definitely a very different. I always joke because there was always like in the early days, there was always like this guy named Kevin. People were like buying machines from this guy named Kevin. Turns out it was like Kevin Zhang. He now works at Foundry. But he was like one of the people that folks trusted because he was a good guy. He was an honest guy. But it was always like, in the early, like, who's Kevin? Like, we got to find Kevin.
Find the Kevin. I mean, and that's a lot of these, like, to your point, the picks and shovels, the people, the cowboys of the industry. And then now it came the suits of the industry. And is it the princes now of the industry? Where are we going next as we scale mining to the energy space and to the nation states?
Yes. Look, I think the industry is going to continue to mature. And there'll be bigger and bigger dollars deployed. And I think energy companies and utilities and nation states will continue to lean into Bitcoin mining. But what's great about Bitcoin mining is it's still open to anyone and everyone. So you can get your hands on the machine and you've got, inexpensive power. You can be just as profitable as the big guys. And that's really powerful. It kind of keeps everyone honest.
As you mentioned, you can't cheat the system. I think that's one of the biggest explanations that I do at Bitcoin is like, for a nation state, for a company, for an individual, it's all the same. We all have to use energy.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Yeah. I mean, like the thought that like, oh, Marathon's going to take over the Bitcoin network. They're not. Even like, oh, Foundry's too big. We're not. Like, if we were a bad actor, people would leave. It's a really incredibly robust system. I would go back to like, we did have a nation state attack the Bitcoin network when China banned mining. And I think that was 21, right? Wasn't that the summer of 21?
Around there. Yeah.
It was like July of 21, I think. And you know what? The Bitcoin network didn't even blink. Like, who cares?
Block times went to like 12 minutes that week. And
for a little while, and over time it adjusted. And if you had machines plugged in, you made a bunch of money because hash rate dropped considerably, but the network kept going.
And Foundry did great with the pool. I mean, that was like probably an explosion.
Perfect timing for us. Yeah, like that definitely helped. That definitely helped. I think they'll get back into it, by the way.
The nation state themselves or just the mining and
no, I mean, sectors? I think eventually China will open up mining more and more.